run, rinse, repeat. Because running is an obsession. It's been quite some time since Kuhn and I hosted a podcast. Some exciting news is that Anne Ashworth is joining us as a host. So this episode is going to be quite exciting. This past weekend we had the Two Oceans Marathon and Rotterdam as well as Paris Marathon. We're going to be touching on Boston and London Marathon in this episode.
And also, listeners better listen up for what you should be doing this last push to Comrades 2025.
Kuhn, you've got some very, very exciting news yourself.
Yeah, so on Tuesday evening, I'll be jetting out to Bangalore, of all places, in India. It's the world's richest and biggest 10-kilometer race, the TCS Bangalore 10-kilometer, and the likes of world record holder and double Olympic champion Joshua Cheptegei will be taking part. So yeah, I'm very excited for that. It will be my first in-person international commentating experience. I'll get to India on Wednesday evening, and then there's a whole host of things that I'll be up to there. On Friday, I'll be hosting the elite press conference with Joshua Cheptegei himself, and then Sunday, obviously the race. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Kieran, that is so cool. I've always wanted to hear you on international marathon commentary because sometimes, like this weekend on Paris and Rotterdam, it was terrible. So I'm super excited. I really hope this opens really big doors for you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really hope it does as well. It's been a dream of mine just to commentate as it is, and I succeeded with that in South Africa. So now, the next step is international.
Yeah, we're very excited to hear that. Kuhn, you are the voice of athletics in South Africa, so taking it out to the world, that's very, very exciting.
Right, thanks. And my biggest fans, David and Anne. I appreciate you guys.
Someone's got to boast for you.
100%.
Let's just talk about Two Oceans from the week past before we get into the weeks coming. I watched the race from start to finish. I saw a lot of things that really made my teeth curl from a race organization perspective. But I also thought that the race itself in the elite field was really interesting. I say that it was interesting because it wasn't interesting in my mind. There were a lot of athletes, local and international, missing from the race, which I thought was quite surprising. And I'm wondering if people are saving their legs for Comrades, which, given the small gap between the races, is probably a good idea. And then, I was also, I was surprised to see no records falling. Athletes always talk pre-race, the record's going. And Total Sports did make the announcement that they were going to have a 250,000 Rand bonus for breaking the record. I don't know what your thoughts were on the race. What did you think?
So, to be expected, us, Gerda winning, without someone chasing, it's very difficult to set those kinds of records. I think Gerda was probably, complacent in just taking the win. And why would you need to run any faster than you have to take it? And there were some very interesting other competitors. Carla Molinara in fourth position. I think that was a very wise move not to go out racing if she is going to tackle Comrades. Nice to see Naheng in third though.
Gerda didn't have anyone pushing her at last year's uprun for Comrades, and she obliterated the record. And it really seems to me that Gerda doesn't really care who else is in the field. The only thing she races against is her clock. But maybe it's because of the close proximity of Comrades. I'm gutted. I'm absolutely gutted for Irvette. I really thought that this year was her year. She'd had a good build-up. She's got a very special place in my heart. I really just think she's amazing. And I'm really sad that she didn't have an opportunity to shine. I don't know.
I was privileged enough to chat to Irvette about her Two Oceans, and this is what she had to say.
So at Oceans, I was really, the first time, really excited to run to Oceans. It has been a good build after I tore my conjoint hamstring tendon in August. So last year, so that was in 2024, after the Olympics, I was out for a bit, about almost 5 months that I couldn't run because of just the severity. So that took a while to heal. So starting the build up in January, it was a bit touch and go because it still felt a bit tender when I started. But then after Pretoria Marathon, that was in February, it just took a good turn that the training really started to go well, and training sessions was looking like it was looking before 2024's to Ocean. So I was really getting excited, and training was going really well. I wasn't sick in a 10-week block. I was healthy, feeling strong. And I changed my gym also a bit. So everything was just like going well. So the Wednesday, everything was still fine. And the Wednesday night, my kids were not feeling too well. They started getting a bit sick. So a bit of a stomach bug thing going on. But I thought, okay, Thursday I'm going into the hotel. It's going to be fine. So I'm going to dodge the stomach bug thing. And I even left all the medication at the kids with LJ because I thought I'm going to be clear of it, because I still felt fine. Nothing was wrong with me. I still did my shakeout run in Hout Bay, and just running that part just to focus a bit and get more comfortable with what's coming. And the Friday morning, I just woke up feeling unwell. So I started vomiting, my stomach couldn't stop hurting, and went to the pharmacist, tried everything that can help. And unfortunately, I couldn't take on too much food while I was feeling this way. And it's quite important the Friday to carb load a bit before ultra. So I knew going into it, and I couldn't even drink a lot of fluids. But yeah, really tried everything possible. And then a Friday morning, I couldn't eat breakfast because I just felt too nauseous. So going into the start, I had like a hot water bag on my stomach just to calm the cramps. So I was really just trying to not think about it and just start the race. And I felt like I was in better shape than last year. So I was really hoping to run another 3:30 or a sub 3:30. So I knew I could be competitive, but from the gun, I was uncomfortable. I really struggled to take in fluid, and then just after I would say the 21K, when we turned at Kommetjie 22, my stomach just didn't stomach anything, and I needed to go to the toilet, unfortunately. And I drank 2 Imodiums before the race because that's what I just wanted to avoid. But I just felt nauseous, and my stomach just didn't feel great all the way. So as I approached Chappies, I went to the toilet again, and I just didn't feel well going. And I knew if I go up Chappies, I have to go down Chappies. But my family was waiting for me in Hout Bay, and I really wanted my boys to cheer me on. They made T-shirts, so I was like, I have to make it to them at least, because I knew I was out of the race. So I started crying at Noordhoek, and a lot of the cheer zone is there and a lot of spectators, and they were cheering me on just to start running again, and it was really encouraging. But I was crying so much because that's the point when I knew the race is kind of over for me. My body was aching already, and it wasn't even the hard part. So, just knew there. But I wanted to just make it to my 2 boys. Coming down Chappies, my legs just gave away. Didn't want to take the pounding anymore. I felt really weak, and I was shivering at that stage, and we all knew it's quite hot. Well, all the runners out there told me it's hot and not that cold to be shivering. But I came down, I walked 5Ks to my family that was waiting in Hout Bay. When I reached them, I was like the whole time just thinking, what am I going to tell my boys? Because it's so hard. I'm telling them all the time to, like, no matter what, you have to finish your race. And now I'm not finishing my race, and it's their first experience at a major race of mine. And yeah, it's like I was just crying when I saw them. So it was really heartbreaking for me to tell them, today I'm pulling out and not finishing. So it wasn't taken up lightly to pull out of the race, but unfortunately things just happened to not work out, and I had to put my health first and think of, what is this race going to do to me today if I try and finish it? And I knew if I tried to finish it, I would maybe land up in the hospital. So I knew it was not a good idea to do it at all. Yeah, and just the way I was feeling, I was just spent. I couldn't run anymore. It just felt too much to ask of my body. So yeah, putting all the hard work in, and then yeah, it's hard. But seeing my boys' faces, and yeah, and they were so proud of me still. They didn't mind me not getting a medal or me not getting a big check. They were just proud of me. And my little boy, he's 6, my youngest, he told me, it's okay, Mama, Gerda can win today, but you'll get it another time. So he was like really fine that I took the win. And he just reminded me again that I mustn't be too heartbroken, because I at least won at the Olympic Games. So in my heartache, it also made me laugh a bit that he is so small, but he can see like the positive in a really hard situation that I had to go through. I'm still sad about it, but I know I made the right decision, not trying to finish.
Really inspiring, and I really hope that Irvette does come back to run another one and to take the win. Ewan, how was the men's race at Two Oceans?
Of course, I was commentating on the day.
Of course you were.
For me, for me personally, I was a little bit disappointed with the way the race was run, more so in the men's race than the ladies' race. I think, as you mentioned already, it was kind of expected. Gerda would go out there. I was really sad for Irvette. I think from Gerda's run, she really went out hard. So although she did say that the 6th win for her was the most important thing, I still do think she wanted to get a record, because speaking to Duncan, her husband, after the race, he said that their plan was to go out hard and burn the competition from early. And I think she maybe went a little bit too hard, because she was still on record pace up until the marathon. But, up until halfway, she was still running like a crazy pace of like a sub 3:20 at one stage. So I think maybe burnt the candle a little bit too much there. And then in terms of the men's race, I was really disappointed, because conditions were really good. There was no wind at all. I was quite excited in the beginning to see Stephen Mokoka and Nkosi Corner go out. And I was like, ooh, nice. We're going to have a proper race. They're going to go for a good time. And then after 5Ks, they kind of just went back into the pack. And that was to the detriment of Stephen, actually, because his legs locked up and he battled with cramp. I mean, the men only went through the marathon mark in just under 2:25. It's really, really slow running. And then it got a little bit exciting, because there was still a big bunch of men. But, the caliber of the athletes that were there, we shouldn't be seeing winning times of over 3 hours, 10 minutes, especially in this era with super shoes and everything. So I was a little bit disappointed with the men's race, yeah.
So Nkosi Corner came 4th overall in the end, and Stephen didn't finish.
Yeah, so Stephen actually did finish this year.
Right.
Last year was his debut, and he didn't finish. And I must give credit to Stephen, because although I say he did finish, it's the way he finished that was really commendable. So he went through the marathon mark in 2 hours, 24 minutes with the leaders. And then really started suffering with cramp going up Constantia Neck. And yeah, he walked it through for a finish, and he did 4 hours and 52 minutes. So he just made a Sainsbury medal.
Kudos
it
to
literally
him.
took him. Yeah, kudos to him. A lot of the other elite athletes would have just stopped, but he said that he has to leave Two Oceans with a medal. And yeah, it took him longer for the last 14Ks than it did for him to get to the marathon mark.
Yeah,
So
I think
kudos to
there's
him.
definitely a lesson in that for all of us.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something, the bailing issue is something I've experienced, and David, you've also experienced. But I mean, I've heard in the past that the more frequently you bail, the harder it is to finish. And I remember when I ran Comrades in 2022 and I was in like excruciating pain at 30 Ks and I stopped. And the pain was no different in 2023, but I kept going. But I did try to stop. I tried to get to Pinetown and tell my second, no, I've had enough now. And he was like, are you kidding? I'll see you at the finish. And, you know, that's exactly what I needed. But there is something is that once you've given up, giving up again doesn't seem so hard. It's like the first time you give up, it's like a train smash. But then the second time you want to do it, you've already broken that barrier and it becomes a little bit more acceptable.
Yeah.
And so the more that you throw the towel in, the easier that it gets. And I remember, you know, there was, for example, Camille Herron. Previously, you know, if she wasn't in a podium position at a race, she would just drop out to save her legs for another race. And I think that almost became a habit. And I don't think that that's good. I don't think that that's good for your psyche. And so when she came to Comrades can't remember which year it was, maybe it was 2019, and she wasn't in a podium position, she still gritted it out. 2019, no, she dropped out in 2019 because she wasn't in a podium position. But then in 2022, she went all the way to the finish, even though she came seventh. And I remember being really impressed with that because I had to think like, wow, imagine the demons you had to fight today not to give up. So yeah, that was just an aside.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very valid point because with Camille, yeah, she's done like I think 5 or 6 Comrades in total, and only has finished the 2. The first one she came for, I think it was either 2014 or 2016 on the down run, and I'm not exactly sure what happened, but she stopped. I think it was going down Fields Hill. She then came back and won it the following year, but then subsequently still came back and didn't finish. So I think it's basically the same as when you're running and, you know, you take a walk during a race. The walking just becomes so much easier to do and you start doing more walking than running, actually.
Yeah.
I do agree with you. I think that the men's race was really slow. I remember looking at them coming through the marathon mark and seeing this big bus of men and just thinking that they were like jogging. And I did think, oh my word, when they get to the top of Constantia Neck, it's going to be a sprint to the finish. And I don't always feel like that's a fair race. I know we've seen that in, for example, Helena Berry in like the track races. And if you're dumb enough to let Helena Berry be sitting on your shoulder coming around the last 400 meters, then you know she's going to wipe the floor with you. And I mean, the same would be with Faith Kipyego as well. You know, like I always want to see a race from the gun because it just makes it so much more exciting. So I completely agree. The men's race was a little bit disappointing. Hopefully they'll be inspired to do better next year.
There's been a lot of talk on the organisation point of view for Oceans this year.
Stuart Mann has been having such a go at Two Oceans. And, gosh, you know, like, I feel so conflicted because on the one hand, I'm like, no race is perfect. And, you know, maybe people wouldn't notice X, Y, and Z if Stuart wasn't shining a light on it. And, you know, like, is this really the chairperson's fault? Like, is this really what she does? Or was someone in the staff dropping the ball? And isn't that the responsibility of the race director, et cetera, et cetera? So, like, I have to be really cautious relying on external influences. But it really seems like Two Oceans was a mess this year. I got feedback from a couple of the athletes that we coach complaining about the expo, saying that the expo was the wrong way around, that you like
had to walk for kilometers.
You power walked through the whole expo, not being interested in anything to get your race number first because they had race number at the exit of the expo instead of race number collection at the entrance. So some people were really irritated by that. They ran out of shirts in the right size or otherwise. otherwise. The shirts weren't a nice design. Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. There was a lot of bragging about the expo, but I don't know how positive it was. I didn't go, so I don't know. But from the TV coverage, oh, if I was an elite athlete in that race, I would have died with those water tables. And the water tables at Two Oceans have always been poor. I mean, I just felt like the way that the cups were lined up on the tables meant that if you were running past the table to pick up a cup, you were inevitably going to knock over like 10, which wastes cups and wastes water, because they were so densely packed on the tables that you couldn't pick them up cleanly without stopping. I thought the elite water tables were a mess. The tables weren't at regular intervals. I had a couple of athletes who complained about huge spacing going up the neck and running out of water. I know Stuart also mentioned the tables ran out of water. But like my pet peeve, apart from the water tables, which is pretty serious in my book, was the cyclists, the lead cyclists in the men's race. I wanted to drop kick those cyclists off the edge of a cliff because they kept on cycling in front of the
Yeah.
athletes and like bumping shoulders with them. Then they were blocking the TV cameras. You got like these folks blocking up the whole TV screen and you couldn't see the elite athletes running behind them. I was getting so frustrated. And then when I think Gerda was coming in, there was like Mr. No Name brand in an orange t-shirt, social cyclists, saw me just cycling along the road there like he belonged. Like, why was he not removed from the race route? I don't know. I was so frustrated. But I just thought, like Two Oceans, like Comrades is one of our premier races. Like, we need to do better. And yeah, I just got very frustrated with those two things. And I just kind of wondered, I wondered how such basic mistakes such as water tables, elite cyclists, expo, t-shirts, medals. I mean, how does someone make that kind of basic mistake? I don't know. I found it very, very frustrating. I don't know what you two thought about it.
I have to agree with you. The lead men at the top of Chapman's Peak trying to get water, they had to grab the water themselves off of the table and literally came to a dead stop. And, in a race situation like that, running close to 2:20 marathon pace, I think that's completely unacceptable. And the cyclists, yeah, as you say, they were just all over the show. It looked like they didn't even realize that there were runners behind them, crossing from one side to the other, with total disregard for runners.
It was very, how can I say, even in commentating, I think both myself and Bruce made a remark that we've never ever seen this before with elite athletes, where there were no volunteers that were holding out the drinks for them. And there were 30, 35 men in that lead bunch, even going down the other side of Chapman's Peak to Hout Bay and the marathon mark. And every single time they got to a water station, they stopped dead still. And some of them even stopped there for 10 seconds and they were drinking water out of the cups, because they also said to me after the race that when they did try and grab it off the table and try and run and drink, by the time it got to their mouth, half of the cup was already gone. Like they couldn't get liquids in. I've never seen it commentating for many years where the elite men were stopping dead in their tracks to get water, and that there were no volunteers that were handing them out. It was very odd for sure.
Did you notice that they let traffic through down one side of Constantia Neck just as Gerda was about to start to climb up the neck? So, I mean, I've run Two Oceans a couple times and Constantia Neck has always been absolutely closed to traffic. And then like suddenly we see like a bus and a couple cars heading down the road. And I was like, they're about to crash right into Gerda. Like, how is it that this road is open? It was crazy.
Yeah, that was really strange, because I also saw Pulanyana, the guy from Max Elite Lesotho, who was running his debut Two Oceans, and he actually surged a little bit going up Constantia and took the lead. And as you and David both know, the elite runners take the shortest route, and that's exactly what he was doing. And he was having the guys on the bikes and stuff yell at him saying, stay to the left-hand side of the road. And then all of a sudden there were cars that were right in front of him. So yeah, it was very, very strange to see that road open.
Yeah, and the thing to remember is that the route is measured along the shortest route. So it's not like the athlete's cutting out any mileage. When you take the longest route around a bend, you're actually adding on mileage to your race. Looking at that traffic, it was terribly hazardous. How many runners were at Two Oceans this year, Kieran?
So from what I have seen, there apparently was 11,000 in the 56, and then the next day in the half marathon, like even way more than I think what was even allowed, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, there were plenty runners on the road.
So as Anne said, they were running in a single lane up Constantia. So I'm not sure how they were intending to have 11,000 runners running in a single lane. For me, that's absurd.
Yeah, it was way too narrow. I ran the half marathon the following day, and when you take that final left-hand turn, they call, I think it's Rose Avenue, and then there's 3 kilometers to the finish. Even there, cars were driving next to us, and there was only one lane. And I think there was about 17 or 18,000 runners in the half marathon. And I mean, I was probably middle of field, 3/4 of the field to the back, and there was no space to run at all. Like literally, you had spectators on both sides of the road, so even one lane was even narrower than a normal size of a lane.
Yeah, I mean, so just reading Stuart Mann's articles and then just kind of remembering my time at Comrades last year, it really, I remember asking lots and lots of questions about things I didn't know and spending a lot of time with people who had up to 40 years experience in race organization and consulting with technical officials and reading the World Athletics rules and reading the ASA technical rules. And I knew that I was going to be judged for my performance and being able to deliver the event. And I wanted to make sure that I didn't mess it up. And, I just sort of think I had no knowledge other than my knowledge as an elite athlete and as a coach and as an athlete generally. But I went and I researched everything and I spent time asking questions and learning. And then I made sure that the right people were appointed to a position where they were able to take control and manage a particular aspect of the race. And in doing that, I made sure that people with the necessary knowledge and skills were there. And it just really makes me wonder, how races are being managed these days. Especially a race like Two Oceans, it's not a club run anymore. It's a major international event, and surely you should be having the right people there checking the rules, making sure the technical requirements are met, making sure health and safety boxes are ticked, making sure your compliance with the city licenses are correct, making sure you've calculated the right number of medals. It really just makes me think, how did we get into a position where these sort of mistakes happen? It's not hard to learn. And I don't know what you think. Increasingly, do you think that we should be going towards an outsourcing arrangement with races? Should all races become professionalized and managed by events companies? Or how do you manage a situation like this?
To be honest, and maybe I'm a little bit biased, they should just hire Anne Ashworth.
No, David, you can't say that.
I agree.
Speaking about Stuart Mann, I caught up with him this week, and this is what he had to say about Two Oceans.
Hi, Anne, Kieran and David. I have to agree with you on the water situation. I can tell you it was even worse actually running the race, especially that 6K stretch from about 38.5 to about 44.5, where there was no water table available. Now, I like to run table to table regardless of the terrain and have a nice long walk at each table and then get going again. And I can tell you that 6K stretch without water in probably what is one of the toughest parts of the route. It's got very hot at that stage. You climbing, you've got the beginning of Constantia Neck, and it just completely broke me. I've got to tell you, it's about 5Ks of no water. I felt dehydrated and not that fantastic. I had to have a much longer walk than I was planning. I guess in terms of, there's been a lot of problems, some of which have been quite well documented, some of which are more irritation factors, like the quality of the shirts and a goodie bag with no goodies inside it, various other things like that. Maybe one of the ones which hasn't been talked about that much, just because there weren't that many entrants in it, was the trail races. Now, the trail was a late addition to the agenda. They had a short and a long distance trail, but both of them became longer than advertised. Because there was no markers on the route. There were no marshals at the beginning of the race. When the marshals did arrive later, often when people had already gone past, they seemed to be disinterested. They were even reported they were smoking, which is a definite no-no in that part of the world with the risk of fires. And there was also no GPX file, which is just a standard for a trail race. So very, very unsafe. Now, on top of that, perhaps the most glaring and negligent issue was that the emergency number was not working. And a number of people tried to phone it when they got lost, and it was out of service. Apparently, what it looks like has happened was that it was working on the Saturday and Sunday. But because the trail races were added late to the event, whoever was organizing it just forgot to activate it on the Friday as well. There was one very serious incident where a runner got a serious head injury, concussion, and required reconstructive surgery. She was about 2.5 kilometers from the finish when this happened. Obviously, with the emergency number not working, at least she was still conscious enough and coherent enough to send her pin location to some friends. Those friends then got hold of the organizers, and it still took about 90 minutes to get any medical attention to it. So really, really shocking, absolutely negligent situation on the trail runs. Obviously, another big issue was that for the last half hour of the half marathon, no one got a medal. Now, for some of us, this might not seem like a big deal. We've got a pile of medals and they don't mean that much. But you've got to remember that in the Two Oceans half marathon, for a lot of people, this is their first half marathon. And really, it takes away something special. You want to show off that medal, take photos and celebrate. There's reports of 75-year-old grannies doing their first half marathon, lifetime achievement, and, not having a medal to show for it. Really, really poor show. Now, what then later turned out was that the medals weren't there because they had radically oversold the amount of runners that they were allowed. And this contravened the permit that they were given by the City of Cape Town. Now, the City of Cape Town is very, very strict on health and safety. They have already indicated that they will be taking action. And yesterday it was also reported in News 24 that essentially the City of Cape Town has withdrawn their support and sponsorship of the race. So that means that all the free safety personnel, traffic police, all of those kind of things goes away. And it's unlikely that they'll be issued a permit as it currently stands. Now, without a permit, they cannot actually run the race. Now, what I do expect will happen is that I am hopeful that the race will still take place in 2026, but under very, very different conditions. I'm expecting that the city will insist to get away with the amateur board structure, which clearly is not working anymore, and will insist that a professional events company is placed in charge of the event. So let's hope that happens. I think it'll be good news for everyone, a more professional organization, and that the runners we can enjoy one of the great South African running events. Perhaps another big concern is that the board, and particularly the chairperson of the board, Tony Kavanagh, seem totally oblivious to the seriousness of and the negligence and of their organisation this year. So Kavanagh specifically posted on her social media profiles, giving herself and her organisation a 95% score, which I don't think many runners would agree with who were involved with the race. Myself, I've personally been involved with 25 Two Oceans, 5 as a volunteer, 20 as a runner. It was definitely the worst organised event that I've been part of. And I spoke to several of the quadruple blue numbers. Those are people who've done 40 or more ultramarathons, and they all agree it was the worst Two Oceans of all time. It's hit rock bottom. Let's hope that things do get better. But there's just a complete lack of accountability or acknowledgement of the seriousness of these problems from Kavanagh and her board. And that is really, really concerning for the future of the race. Another big concern for runners would be the blatant lies and very obvious lies which keep coming out from the communications department. So about 2,500 runners, it's estimated, didn't get a medal in the half marathon, and some of them, not all of them, received a mail apologizing and stating in the mail, it stated that the reason, this is Hilton Cairns, the race manager, being quoted here, he said that the reason for the lack of medals was because they overestimated how many silver medalists there would be, but because of the hot conditions, there were fewer silver medalists. Now, there's normally less than 200 people in the half marathon who get a silver medal, so definitely there weren't 2,500 silver medalists left over. I actually went and ran the numbers and established that the percentage of silver medalists has been the same, 1.3% of the finishers in the last 3 years. So it's just another blatant and obvious lie. Why they would need to do that, I just don't know. Rather just apologize, take accountability. And it is pretty obvious that the reason that they were missing medals was because they oversold the race. And that is about the figure, 2,500, 3,000 is about the excess number of runners that they had from what they were allowed. And that's why they didn't have enough medals. So why lie about it?
Links to Stuart's articles can be found in the show notes.
I just wish that athletics in South Africa worked properly. Like, I wish from the top down, we had people in positions of power and influence who had the knowledge, expertise, skills, and passion for the sport that is required. But we don't. We have political fat cats and no-name brands.
And I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think it needs to come from the top down. And I think ASA needs to get their house in order first before they can oversee races and do what they're supposed to do.
ASA can't even get its financial statements in order, never mind its house.
This past weekend, we also saw the Paris Marathon and the Rotterdam Marathon taking place. Kieran, can you give us an update of what went down at those two races?
Yeah, in Paris, it wasn't a really exciting race for me. Bernard Biwott from Kenya took victory there, and maybe is someone that we should look out for in the future, because he ran his debut marathon last year in Frankfurt, which he won in 2:05, just breaking 2:06 that day. And then in the second marathon now in Paris, he won again, and he broke away after 32 Ks. So he literally ran the last 10 kilometer on his own, improved his PB again. He ran 2:05.25. There were a lot of guys behind him. I think he won by just under a minute. In the women's race, Bedatu Herpa from Ethiopia took victory there, literally 4 seconds in front of her fellow countrywoman, Dera Dida. So Angela Tanui, who's been a former champion herself, was on the podium spot for third, 2:21.07. So it was an exciting race in the ladies' race, especially over the last 3 kilometers, where they were all really close together. But the race that I was very interested in was Rotterdam, because it was the return of Jeffrey Kammerer, who was tipped to be like the new Eliud Kipchoge. But unfortunately, I think it was two or 3 years ago, he was knocked over in Kenya while out on an easy training run, and then he actually broke his leg, and he had, months and months of rehab and everything. He's a former double New York Marathon winner. He was tipped to do great things, so it was nice to see him come back. He took victory in Rotterdam. He ran 2:04.33 and was very, very strong at the end. He could have gone much faster, so nice to see Jeffrey back on the top. And then in the ladies' race, it wasn't really that exciting. Jacqueline Chirono from Kenya went out really hard. She was running 2:18 marathon pace for much of it, until she faded a little bit towards the end. But yeah, taking victory in 2:21, just over 2:21. But yeah, now it moves on to the even bigger World Marathon Majors. So on Monday, it will be the Boston Marathon, which is going to be a really exciting race. Brilliant elite field put together. And then, of course, next week, Sunday, the very big one, London Marathon. The who's who of marathon running is there. Sifan Hassan, Paris Jepchicho in the ladies. It's Tigist Asefa, former world record holder. It's going to be really, really good. In the men's race, we've got Jacob Kiplimo, 56-minute half marathon runner, world record holder, who's making his debut. Some are already saying he's going to be the new Kelvin Kibiwat, who got Kelvin Kiptum, who tragically passed away last year, the world record holder in the marathon. Sebastian Sawe, who ran his debut marathon last year in Valencia, who won it in 2:02 flat. He'll be there. Eliud Kipchoge is making an appearance. And from the word on the street, through his management and also in Kenya, is that he's running times that he was running 2-3 years ago when he broke the world record. So it'll be very interesting to see how he does. And then, of course, closer to home, our very own social elite runner, Adam Lipschitz. He will be in the elite field as well. He's targeting a time of 2:07, 2:08, which I think on the day could get him a top 10 finish.
Sure. That's really exciting, Kieran. I have been hunting. I actually watched Rotterdam because I thought that Precious Mashale was going to be running Rotterdam. Do you have any idea whether he's going to be running London or Boston?
No, so he's definitely not in London or Boston because those elite fields get announced sometime before the race. So he's definitely not there. I did hear he was training for a marathon. So it was interesting that you said that that was the race. I'm not 100% sure what has happened to Precious because even on Sunday was the APSA Run Your City Gqeberha 10K. And Precious's South African record was actually broken in that race by Adrian Wilschkit. So, yeah, I don't know if he's been battling some injury problems or what, but yeah, we haven't actually seen him in any races this year so far.
Yeah, so Precious did struggle with some injuries, but he was tipped to be running his debut marathon in April, is what I was told, and so I've really been trying to keep an eye out to see where he popped up, because I'm excited to see if he's recovered from his injury and also to see how his speed over 10 and 21 converts into a marathon. I just love tracking the South African athletes, but I'm super excited with what Adam is doing. Yeah, I mean, he's so incredibly talented, and really just a nice down to earth guy. And I'm excited to see what he can do going forward. I've actually tried to tempt him to come to Cape Town Marathon to have a go at breaking the South African record in Cape Town in October. So yeah, I'll be definitely following him at London. I think that's very cool.
So with Comrades coming up in 8 weeks' time, runners will be running a whole lot of mileage in the next few weeks. This is the big mileage phase. It's very important for runners to understand exactly what they need to be doing at this particular time. And we know that running lots of races is not a good idea. Our long runs and our aerobic runs to simulate the distance of Comrades are vital. But Anne, you as a down Comrades winner, what advice can you give us that we need to be focusing mostly on now?
Sure. So with 8 weeks to go, you've really only got 5 or 6 weeks of training left. So time is getting short. And I think the two priority areas for me, in addition to obviously getting your long runs in, is to be testing your nutrition strategy. You should be using your long runs to test whatever fueling you want to do on race day. There's no ways you can be trying it on a 30K and thinking that's sufficient test. Like, you need to be testing it on your really long runs, like your 50Ks, your 60Ks, because something might not cause you gut distress in a 30K run, but it will cause you gut distress in a 60K run, and you need to know that. So first of all, I really think people need to be figuring out testing and bedding down their nutrition strategy for the race. And then the second thing that for me is an absolute make or break is your eccentric leg strength loading. So on the down run, well, there's a thing that we say at Comrades, is that the strongest runner wins the down and the lightest runner wins the up. And I mean, I think that your leg strength on the down is really, really important, and particularly your ability to absorb the pounding of those downhills, especially over the last 30 kilometers. And that involves eccentric loading. So making sure that you do your step downs, making sure that you are doing those small hip stability exercises, focusing on knee strength, yeah, and all of your sort of slow eccentric movements is really, really important. And then something that we don't think about until it's really sore is don't forget to do your bicep curls because you're running all day and you've got your arms up in a like half bent position, and then suddenly you've been holding them like that for 5, 6, 7 hours and your arms are really achy. So don't be a T-Rex. Make sure you keep doing your bicep curls because otherwise your arms are going to be very sore on race day.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, especially if you're going to be carrying a water bottle. That thing seems to get heavier and heavier the further you run. But running downhill race, doing training on downhills is not a wise idea. I've heard of a lot of athletes trying to do downhill repeats. It comes with very, very high risk. So doing the strength work in the gym is the best way to adapt your body for the down run. You mentioned about the nutrition, and I think a big focus nowadays is also on your hydration. Practice your hydration. It's usually hotter when you're running the down run in the second half of the race. Make sure you're getting enough liquid in, and you need to be taking electrolytes. You can't just be drinking plain water. It'll sit in your gut. You won't get that gastric emptying and you'll have gut issues. So make sure you are practicing your nutrition for race day on your long runs.
I think my top second tip, third tip, and I'm going to ask Kieran to weigh in here, is that I can't think of a single good reason why you wouldn't use plates and super cushion shoes for the down run. And I know that seems to be the way all shoes are going. Like David, you and I were looking at shoes today and we struggled to find shoes that didn't have a big stack height and a plate. But Kieran, I mean, what do you think about the advantages that the super cushion plated shoes provide on the down run?
Yeah, I think it's a major advantage on the down. If I think back to pre-super shoes, and a very close friend of mine, Fusi Ntlapo, who won the 2003 Comrades. He ran 10 Comrades marathon gold medals in a row. And he always used to actually wear a racing shoe. And when I say racing shoe, back then it was a lot flatter. So he would wear a racing shoe for the Comrades up run. And when he ran the down run, he actually would wear either a trainer like the Pegasus or a racer trainer, just because that extra cushioning really helped his legs just last a lot longer, especially on the down. There's so much pounding. So now you're getting these new shoes, which are not only having these really nice bouncy foams and saving your legs, but it's also making you a little bit more efficient biomechanically in your running and, propelling you forward, so to speak. So, yeah, if it's almost like a joke now at races that if someone lines up next to you and they don't have a super shoe on, there's no way that person's going to beat you.
Whoops. So Kieran, interesting story. Last year's Comrades on the up run, I decided to run in my trainers, my Saucony Kinvaras. It's a 4 mil drop. It's a very, very ordinary trainer shoe. And I thought they were absolutely fantastic on the up run. I have no regrets with that. I ran my fastest up run time last year, but certainly on the down run, all that cushioning is more than welcome.
Yeah, like there's been times when I've done a long run and I wear a normal running shoe, if that's even a word still, just a normal running shoe, and the next day my legs are feeling a little bit fatigued, and then because I'm not an elite and I can use an illegal stacked shoe, when I ran with that, the next day my legs were so fresh. And I think there's not just benefit on race day, but also a lot of benefit to it in your training, not using them every day. I want to put that out there, because if you do that, you'll end up with a torn calf. And I'm speaking from experience there. But yeah, just using a super shoe also for that long run, it just saves the legs, and you'll see a really good benefit. Just not in your bank account though, because they don't last long and they're very expensive.
I mean, I think the thing to just remember, and it's similar to my obsession with eccentric loading on the down run, is that in order to truly benefit from a super shoe, plated super shoe, your stability and your biomechanics need to be sound. Otherwise, you're going to get injured. So if you've got a dodgy Achilles, or if your foot, you pronate or supinate, or if you've got some kind of instability, and you still want to run Comrades in a super shoe, because that's obviously going to be a huge benefit, then the other thing you need to be doing right now in the build up to Comrades is working on all your stability exercises, so that when it comes to race day, your instability is no longer a factor, and you can fully utilize the efficiencies of the shoe. So again, it's those really small movements, getting on a foam block, getting on a Bosu ball, doing proprioception exercises, those sort of things. And if you can spend the next 8 weeks really bedding down your stability, then I think that you will be able to take full advantage of the benefits of your plated stacked shoe.
You need to be doing some of your longer running in those plated shoes. It's no good saving them only for race day, but I don't recommend daily use of it, like you said, Kieran. And that's a wrap for this episode. For help with your training, visit our website. The link is in the description. Don't forget to run, rinse, and repeat.